Welcome to Flat Ride of the Week, episode 21. This will sadly be the final Flat Ride of the Week on my channel for some time, as I go back to Cedar Point on the 15th, which is next Monday. Flat Ride of the Week will continue over on Alex's channel, which is linked both in the description and in the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Once Cedar Point's season ends in November, we'll decide if Flat Ride of the Week will ever move back to this channel. With all that out of the way, we'll be covering the long-requested zipper this week. As always, if we forget something or say something that's incorrect, please politely correct us in the comment section below. Now, for one final time on Flat Ride of the Week for a while at least, let's get started. So for the history, the zipper rides date back to 1928 in the United States when Selner Manufacturing, a company that's probably best known for their tilt-a-whirls that we covered in the previous episode, invented the swooper. This ride was essentially the classic whip ride turned vertical. The ride featured a cable and a pulley design much like the modern-day zipper, however the whole rotating arm thing was not in place yet. The thrill of the ride came from the high-speed swoop the ride would perform when climbing to the top of the ride or being flung to the bottom. And when you go down, you would experience some pretty crazy airtime. Sadly, Herbert Selner, the ride's inventor and president of Selner Manufacturing, died on April 22, 1930, and after his death, no more swooper rides were produced. The story of the modern-day zipper starts in 1968, when Joseph Brown, under direction from well-known American rides manufacturer Chance Rides, invented the zipper based off the swooper. In 1971, a patent for the ride was obtained, and the ride entered full production and was an instant hit. The ride consists of a large rotating oval that rises to a height of 56 feet or 17 meters, with 12 cars connected together with cables pulled by wheels on each side of the oval. On a modern zipper, the main oval, or boom, rotates at 7.5 revolutions per minute, and the cable with the gondola rotates around that boom at 4 revolutions per minute. The original zippers actually ran quite a bit faster, with a boom speed of 11 revolutions per minute and a cable speed of 7 revolutions per minute. This was extremely fast and reportedly caused many riders to experience whiplash, backaches, and even some heart attacks. The rising insurance premium this caused for the showmen who owned the ride caused Chance to dial back the speed to the modern numbers. Modern zippers are capable of running both forwards and backwards. Normally it's in the same cycle. Zippers, quite famously in the US anyway, do not allow single riders due to the way that riders are secured in the ride. This has become quite controversial, so controversial, in fact, that a 3-year debate has taken place underneath the Ride Extravaganza page for the ride. If you're ever bored, I recommend you don't read that, but if you're really bored, you might want to consider reading it. It's pretty funny. The restraints of the ride originally came with a simple single-position lap bar attached to the door of the cage-like gondola. This design was originally plagued with problems, but we'll get to that in just a second. In 2018, Chance came out with a newer version of the zipper, now with over-the-shoulder restraints that are significantly more secure, which certainly reduces the pain from these rides because they're probably some of the most painful flat rides out there. And it's also way more secure and safe. The zipper can be transported on a single trailer in the US, which is part of the reason why it's so popular. It's been described as one of the most out-of-control, unpredictable rides ever made, far surpassing all roller coasters and pretty much every flat ride. So while the basics of the zipper design really have not changed since the 1968 design, there have been a few smaller, harder-to-notice changes. So a big factor behind that was in September 1997, when the Consumer Product Safety Commission made the unprecedented decision to issue a public warning urging Americans to not ride zippers because they were unsafe due to 4 fatal accidents that happened that year as a result of the cage doors on the ride opening mid-ride and ejecting the riders. As a result of this, all newer zippers and all previous ones were modified and secured with the original latch as well as a redundant latch approved by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and a large R-pin key. Despite these changes, a similar accident actually occurred in 2006, though this was traced to the ride operator failing to sufficiently secure the locking mechanisms. The whole reason this latch was such a large problem is that all of the models of the zipper with lap bars use the door to hold the riders in place, and the riders are thrown around in the cage during the ride. This same potential design flaw is not present on newer models of the zipper with over-the-shoulder restraints. And while a zipper of today, which by the way these rides are still being sold by Chance today, May look mostly unchanged from its 1968 original design. Quite a few smaller, harder to notice changes have taken place. For example, the light package may look basic like the original, but it actually uses LED lights now. So these rides have still been modernized over the years, and they're still very crude and basic rides, but they haven't been modernized in ways that are harder to notice.
Zippers never really became popular in Europe. In the 80s and the 90s, there were about 5 zippers in Europe, mainly in the UK but also in France. In 2020, there's only one zipper left on the European fairs. It first traveled in Italy until around 2016, then it was sold to France, where it traveled until the end of 2018. Then it got sold to Spain, where it travels to this day.
In 1968, a zipper cost only $32,000. That's still quite a lot when adjusted for inflation, but a modern zipper in 2020 runs for about $1 million US, and they are indeed still being sold today. And quite a few showmen, especially outside the US, have built their own zippers to save on the cost of importing one from the US, especially since they're such basic rides to begin with. They're not too hard to build yourself. Well, that's about all we have to say as far as the hard facts of this ride go. It's certainly a very interesting ride, and a ride that's it's pretty much ubiquitous across US fairs. It's kind of known as that sketchy ride, and indeed it's probably one of the less safe rides out there in the world operating today. That being said, it's still safe, and I'd like to ride one sometime because I've seen many of them, all of them in pretty meh shape, but I would still like to ride one around here. They're very common in the US. That being said, Alex, would you like to add anything?
Well, yeah, I got the chance to ride a real zipper in France in 2018, and it was insane. It was a really intense experience, but also very unpredictable, as said before. This zipper still had the original lap bar restraints, and back in 2018, I was pretty small. So there was a huge gap between me and the restraints. And because of that space, I slammed into the lap bar very hard multiple times, which was very painful. But when I got out, I got some pain in my back, but it was not that big of a deal. It was still a very intense and unique experience, and it was really something I never experienced before, and I will probably never experience again, because it was so good but so bad at the same time. It was really weird, and I'm very glad I got to ride it.
Yeah, I know there's quite a big fan base for the zippers. A lot of people either love them or they hate them. I don't have an opinion. I've not ridden one yet. That being said, I'd love to at some point. They look insane, and sure, they're very different than like your European take on the modern flat ride, which is very intense and very refined in many ways, whereas this is pretty much just, we're going to flip you upside down in as many unpredictable, weird ways as possible. And that's basically what it is. That being said, it's a very well-loved ride, and I would love to experience one someday. I think that is about all we have for this very classic ride. If you see one and you're not in the US, definitely ride it if you're in the US. And you see one, consider it. If you can handle every other flat ride at your fair or your local park, you might be able to handle the zipper. But that's really up for you to decide on your own, because these things are vomit machines, it sounds like. So I'll probably ride one someday. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about it for Flat Ride of the Week on this channel. Don't forget to head over to Alex's channel and subscribe so you can continue watching Flat Ride of the Week over there. I know as a whole, this series, learning about all these flat rides has definitely turned me into a bit of a flat ride enthusiast, which I definitely wasn't one when we started. So I hope that the same can be said for most of you. And I hope you enjoyed this series on my channel. Go check it out on Alex's, and we'll see you, well, Alex will see you next week.